Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Paranormal Guys. We're glad you're here. The chat is open. I'm about to open up the toll-free line, and we'll have the phone lines going. It's 1-888-88-YERGZ on your phone pad. That's 1-888-88-YERGZ on your phone pad. And let's see.
Ladies and gentlemen, from coast to coast and around the world, you're listening to the Sportcat show.
It's an inside joke. All right, well, let's see. I've got Miss Cheyenne and Miss Dina here with me. How are you, young lady?
Fabulous.
Perfect.
How are you?
Well, I'm great. What do you say we bring our first guest out? He is the author of a book that we were just actually chatting about, and I'm personally looking forward to reading it because, well, I'm a science fiction geek and a comic book geek too. So,
Just a geek.
well, yeah, I'm just a geek. So, yeah, you're right. If I can figure out which button to push, there we go. I got too many buttons here tonight. Oh, George, how are you?
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me on. This is great. It's great to be here.
Great to have you.
Thank you.
Great
Thank
to
you.
have
We get the chat open, the phone line's going, everything's good. Okay, I pushed all the right buttons. So, George, welcome to the show. We were talking earlier, you're a DC native, and that you've got a brand new book out. Well, I guess it's been out for a couple months now, and you got its follow-up book is coming out. So it sounds kind of interesting with a intergalactic private investigator. Tell us about it.
Sure, yeah. So it's called Eugene J. McGillicuddy's Alien Detective Agency. So the lead character, Eugene McGillicuddy, he has the very odd psychic ability to answer any question that someone asks of him. So he is trying to hide, though he's always concerned that someone's going to put him in a petri dish and try to dice his brain up and say, how does that work? So he decided to try to hide in plain sight by being a detective, because who gets asked tough questions? Detectives. So he has so he is trying to navigate his way through pretending to be a detective by leveraging his psychic ability to answer any question that anybody asks of him. So
You're cool.
That's cool.
Yeah.
What was your influences in writing this? I mean, was it just something that kind of like came up to you, or is it just authors you follow, or how did you?
Sure. So
that's a setup.
Yeah. So I, generally speaking, I'm weird. So I have, that was a weird idea. So
Welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, I found my people. So yeah, I grew up reading, hard science fiction like Isaac Asimov and Robert Heinlein, but then I also got introduced into some of the British science fiction out there, Douglas Adams and, of course, Terry Pratchett, Mary Gentle. And I read some of that stuff, and it's sort of, so there's like this confluence of where this hard science fiction and then this comedy science fiction and this weird science fiction all kind of glommed itself together. And I thought, well, it'd be kind of neat if there was a detective that was like, could just answer any questions somebody asked of him. So I thought that was like, of course, Dirk Gently's The Holistic Detective Agency and Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, super big fans of those series, both, the TV shows, the books. There was actually a radio show. There was actually a PBS special for Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy that came out a very long time ago, and it was brilliant, and I absolutely loved it.
Sure.
So I guess all of that sort of like came together as this like avalanche of insanity and made me think, hey, this might be a cool idea. So, I just played with that idea for a good 5, 6, 7, 8 years. And then fortunately, I was fortunate enough for a group to say, hey, this is kind of cool. Let's go ahead and give it a shot and put it out there. So it is out there in the world.
Very cool.
Very cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I like that. It's a unique idea. So especially when you get, the paranormal wrapped around into ET. So
that's right. Hey, ET can have paranormal too, right? There's no reason why you can have
They're part of the paranormal.
you're probably the paranormal ET.
Yeah, probably.
When you were writing it, how long did it take you to get everything together? You said it took you 5 years to get it together. Yeah. Started rolling.
The idea. So I actually wrote a couple of short stories around this idea, and I was sort of playing with that. They didn't really work functionally well. And then I wrote this book. I actually participated. So Twitter used to have this like Twitter pitch contests where you could pitch yourself to but and also some different websites used to have this where you could pitch your book and possibly get a mentor that would help you like craft it and mold it. I didn't actually get a mentor, but I did get some good advice along the way. And so it was really great advice, and I took that and then I rewrote the whole thing. And then beta readers are a writer's best friend. Writers groups are a writer's best friend. There's a local group like the DC Speculative Fiction Writers Group. They read my book. They gave me some really good advice. I basically took the second half of the book and threw it in the garbage and rewrote it. And then it finally got to be the book that it is today. So, Arnold Schwarzenegger once actually said this great quote of, there's no such thing as a self-made man. That is 100% me. I did not just, go into a room and lock the door and write and come out with this great book. Absolutely. We'll have other writers, other help, other mentors, other folks, just pitching in, giving me those beta reads, thankfully reading it a second time, and then sometimes reading it a third time and saying, and giving truthful, honest feedback of, hey, this doesn't make any sense, or this is really stupid. And then I was able to, oh, you know what? That is stupid. Change it, mold it, and modify it, and then actually, come up with a finished product. So it's definitely a long journey to get there. But it's well worth it, that journey, that's for sure.
I say, I bet that reward after 5 to 7 years is just finally.
Yep. And every review that comes in on Amazon, you're like, a review. Like, yes. Someone read it and liked it. Oh, that's enough. That's really good. That's awesome.
That would be very satisfying to have somebody like it. I mean, just give you a like on it. I mean, all that work, and it's like your baby. I guess I would guess.
It absolutely is. And actually, one of the I'm not the kind of person that pats himself on the back or anything, but
right.
one of the reviews was so good, and I was just like, this guy. They were something along the lines of, great new voice in science fiction, and I almost got in tears. I was like, really? Someone thinks that it was that good that I brought that much, interest to someone as they read my book. I mean, that one actually, like, I was like, what? Because every writer, it doesn't matter what level you're at, really, you have imposter syndrome. You have this thought of, man, what I write is terrible. What am I doing? This is stupid. I'm just going to throw this in the garbage can and burn it, and then I'm going to go live in a van down by the river. But
the only way to do it.
That's the only way to do it. Or actually, a Honda Element down by the river, because I'm a big Honda Element fan. So I read that review though, and like I said, it almost brought me to tears, and I was just like, man, at least one person in the world, got it.
I think I'm worthy.
That was really cool.
And it is now framed above his mantle.
Oh yeah.
It's the same way it is for podcasters. Every week I go, oh, God, did I just do that? That's horrible.
Right.
We're our worst critics.
We are our worst critics.
As part of being the creative process is, you're afraid to put your toe in the water, and then when you do, you're afraid the shark's going to bite it off. So
I think any artist is probably their own worst critic. If
any creative, really.
Yeah, any creative type of artistic talent.
Now,
what I do isn't artistic. I just talk a lot.
Well, it is an art.
Did you find yourself ever like getting into that point of where it's like, I've gotten so deep into writing this, but like now I don't want to, but if I don't, I've put so much work into this that.
Oh yeah, no, there were several points where I just sort of like quit. I was like, you know what, this is dumb. I'm going to go play video games and go on Xbox for the next 3 years. And, I wrote my first short story actually when I was 17. I'm 52 and I published this book when I was 51 years old. So, that's a long stop point where there was a decade or more where I was just like, this is dumb. I can never be like Stephen King. I can never be like Robert Heinlein. I can never be Isaac Asimov. I can never be Terry Pratchett. What am I even thinking? So yes, absolutely. There were points where I just put the whole thing down and I went and I did something else for sure. I mean, that happens. It's part of the process.
Yeah.
Well, for the record, I think Stephen King might have had some help with other things on that, if you know what I mean.
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, he definitely had like, I mean, he's got a degree in English literature, right? I mean, he's got.
No, I mean he might have had some other influences to get all of the stuff written that he has.
Oh, you mean, yeah? I mean, who knows? I mean, I don't know. Maybe he did. Maybe there was some paranormal things happening on there with Stephen King, but he is a fantastic craftsman of the written word. I mean, he is. I know that there's some folks that give.
He really is.
Yeah,
he really is. There's some people out there that give Stephen King some flack. They can step off. They can. Sorry.
He's
I don't
gifted.
like the man. I don't like the man, but he is an excellent writer.
Yes.
Excellent writer.
If you haven't read his book on writing, I would suggest it.
I actually did, and it is great. It is just like gives you into his prospect. It also kind of like hints at most writers are alcoholics.
Oh,
there was a point where he had to give up drinking because and kudos to him for doing that, for recognizing that. But yeah, the creative mind sometimes just leans into that sometimes, but it's a brilliant on writing. I also recommend that. It is definitely a very good deep dive into his process, into what he went through. But yeah, say if you like him, if you hate him, it doesn't matter to me.
Right.
The written word that he comes up with, I think, is good.
No, his books are just brilliant. I mean, I don't even know. Can't even describe it.
I read the Tommyknockers very young as a. I used to have to. My mom didn't want to leave me alone to get ready for school and catch the bus, so I had to stay over at the neighbor's house every morning when she had to leave for work at 5:30. And the neighbor's dad had it sitting over on the shelf, and I noticed he would never touch it. It always sat and looked the same. So in the morning, I'd be sitting there like with my phone, sitting here with the light on it, just like, well, I gotta have something to do. Jeez, this is a really good book.
The Stand is one of my favorites.
Yes, Stand is great.
That one haunts me. So,
which one is the Stand about? Because there was one I specifically remember the cover of the book, but
it's about the end of the world, where they all go to Colorado and the rise of the Antichrist and the end of the world, and they all go to Colorado to gather. And the old woman
I know what you're talking
there.
about.
Yeah.
There was another
Gerald's
one.
Game was another one that was like crazy.
Bag of Bones was the one that I was thinking of. That's a really good one too.
That's good.
Yeah.
I was going to ask which if you have a favorite, George, or you just a fan of all of them?
I'll have to. So Stephen King wrote a fantasy book once. What is it called? Oh shoot. I read this. The Eyes of the Dragon, I believe it is.
I haven't heard of that one.
He wrote this fantasy book called Eyes of the Dragon. Man, I was just like, what? It was just so cool. It was so good. So I know it's not like his main like horror, and it's not paranormal stuff, but that was a really good book. I really like that book.
I have to look into that one.
So I asked you earlier, we talked about are you a comic book fan?
Oh yeah, I love comic books. I love I love my first love was the Incredible Hulk. I used to try to Hulk out and
Spider-Man. He was on in the mornings before school. So yeah.
In fact, Spider-Man was number 2. So I love me some Spidey. I love the X-Men, the old 1997 X-Men, which Disney has apparently relaunched. I haven't had a chance to watch it. So they relaunched the cartoon on Disney Plus, which I have not watched. But the old 97 X-Men cartoon, man, that was the best thing I've ever seen him. That was just cool.
Good cartoons.
Those are good cartoons.
I think as I get older, I realize they're going to remake everything over again. So
I think they are too. I don't know why.
Because
they can't come up with new movie concepts.
Nobody has original ideas anymore. Like we were talking about E.T.
Everything hasn't been done.
Travis was telling me the other day, he's like, I'm pretty sure I read something that they're making another ET, and I was like,
I think I heard that
why?
too, actually.
What? I hadn't heard that one.
I think it might even be more that, these so you've got the artists, there's a lot of really good artists out there right now.
Yeah.
A lot of really good, creative people, but you have these business people that are in charge of Hollywood and these business, they go to business school. So they look at this and they're like, well, I can take a chance on this new author that might have sold a couple thousand books, or I can go back in time to E.T., which I know sold 1 million, and I can try to remake that, because I think it's more that's more, these business folks are trying to go back and remine
the money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Actually, that makes the most sense out of anything. So yeah,
I really capture the magic again, though.
I was also thinking of people from like that time, whenever like these movies came out. Now they're older and they're like, no, now I want to do it my way.
100%, right? And they're also playing to those folks, and I'm one of those folks. I'm in that age group where they're saying, well, he'll go watch this movie again because he's nostalgic, and he'll watch E.T. again, and I probably will, right? I mean, let's be honest with ourselves. So they're saying, instead of like trying to take a chance on a new author with a new idea, let's just mine the gold we've already know that is gold, which is E.T. Or, I know they remade The Stand recently.
They did that.
So yeah, they're remaking a lot of those stuff. But you do see like new stuff that comes out every once in a while. What was that show that came out on Netflix? I can't remember the name of it, but they all go to this there's this foreign show. They go to this Chinese, or I think it was Japanese or Chinese, where they go to this shoot. I can't remember the name of it. It'll come.
Are you talking about Squid Games?
Squid Game. Thank you.
Late
at night. I apologize. My brain is all over.
You said Japanese, and I was like, Netflix. The only thing I can think of.
Squid Game was wild, by the way. I mean, that was like, what is happening here? That was crazy. So you do get new stuff, but
I was more interested in the game show that they made out of it, of people having to go through all the.
That was fun.
I thought that's what it was. I thought it was the game show.
Oh no, they made a show, like a drama.
I didn't know that. I thought,
and then they made a game show that after the drama. So both I thought were really good. I really liked both.
It reminded me of a really intense Mr. Beast video.
Yeah, he did that too. I think he did a Mr. Beast did a Squid Game version of that. It was like Survivor on Survivor
Crack.
Yeah.
Survivor on crack. Whoa.
I saw Robert Kirkman is going to be doing a Transformers G.I. Joe movie, and I'm like,
I saw that.
I don't know if I should be excited about this or not.
I will say one of the most excited points I've ever had in my entire life was when I was, 12, 13, 14, whatever age I was. There was an episode of Transformers that came on, and there was this shady dude that showed up in this episode of Transformers, and he had this raspy cough, and he was like walking with a blimp at one point. And at the very end of the episode, he goes, "Man, these guys just don't know how to be really good bad guys." And he turns around and goes, "Cobra!" And I lost it. I was like, "What? Cobra Commander in the Transformers? Shut up!" So, I lost it at that point. So I'm actually kind of like, see, and this is it. They're playing to the older generation. I'll go see that movie 10 times.
They're playing to the nostalgia.
You can have Michael Bay direct it, they'll blow everything up. So you can't be wrong there.
Yep.
I can't say much because I really liked the first two, especially the second one's Michael Bay Transformers. But I know so many people who hated him, and I'm just thinking like, nah, they got to quit with the Transformers. You're just gonna really start making people even more mad.
That
was one of my favorites growing up, and I am actually excited to see Kirkman take off with it. He bought the rights to it from Hasbro for G.I. Joe and the Transformers, so I'm kind of excited. I mean, eventually the zombies have got to die, right? I mean, come on, The Walking Dead has got to come to an end at some point in time.
Yeah,
they'll keep making more spinoffs.
I I love The Walking Dead. I watched it for a long time, but after I can't remember. I think it was when The Whisperers came on. I was like, I'm out. I can't do it anymore. I'm done.
After Negan killed Glenn, I was just like, I can't do it anymore.
Yeah.
That was brutal. That was brutal.
That was actually pretty brutal, though.
That was the only point in time I was really invested, and I like came home from work to watch it, and I was just like, what?
I did read one time that they did a poll of like comic book users to see who the baddest bad guy was, the most bad guy, and Negan beat out the Joker. And I was like, kind of that. And then I went and I got to thinking about it because of the younger generation more so. The Joker, more in our era, of course, they're bringing it back that way now. But I was like, yeah, that makes sense. Negan he's pretty.
So once again, I'll show my age. My favorite all-time villain of any television show ever. You may not know this reference. Scorpius. One of the absolute best villains in history. This is a show called Farscape. It appeared on the Sci-Fi channel for 4 or 5 years. Scorpius was by all means the best villain because he was a villain that was driven by the desire to actually do something kind of good, and it didn't matter what he had to do to get his goal. His goal in his mind was justified, and he will destroy the universe to get that justified goal.
I remember the name Scorpius.
Right?
So Scorpius is Thanos?
I suppose in a weird kind of way, yeah. But maybe there's some correlation there. Thanos was like desperate to get his goal, and he thought his goal was just and right and pure. Scorpius as well. But the way Scorpius, if you have not watched Farscape, go out, rent it, watch it. Once you watch the first episode, bye. I'll see you in the whole
I'll
thing.
see you after I come out of my room in 6 months.
Best shows ever.
Have you thought about, now I don't know how this process goes, but have you thought about with your book trying to do a movie or a TV show or anything like that?
Oh, yeah. No, if there's any producers or directors out there that want to contact me to do a movie or a TV show, okay.
We will drop the email below.
Sure, I love that. But that's, there is stiff creative competition out there. And I don't know how to do that. I don't know anything about that. So,
yeah.
So is this book like completely serious, or is there like humor elements to it, or
this is definitely a humorous science fiction for sure.
Because I was thinking like you could probably do that like Men in Black style.
Yeah, no, I mean that for sure. But again, how that works, how you even go about doing, I barely know how to publish a book, let alone be a TV route. I mean, I don't know.
I guess somebody would need to write a screenplay.
Did you go to a publisher?
Yes. So it is published with a small press. They're the Wild Rose Press. Great group of folks. Absolutely. I can't thank them enough. So they shepherded me through the process. So I did use a small press. A lot of folks like to do self-publishing. If you're super lucky and, you can write a really good a query letter to an agent. You can get an agent, and you might get one of the big press, big organizations. That's hard to do. At least it is for me. I could not. I wrote 100 query letters. I must have sent it out 150 times. Harry Potter was sent out, 100 and some times, and it was rejected like left and right. It's very hard to cross that initial barrier of getting published into that, the actual professional agent and full publishing realm. Once you do it, you're like, you've crossed the threshold, and kudos to you, but it's really hard to get there.
It's there's a lot of similarities between that and comics. Is you've got to find the right person and the right button to press before the doors swing open for you.
Absolutely. And sometimes it's like for comics, you've got to perform on the right night. The right person sees you. You get noticed. and that's kind of what it all comes down to. So, if there's a publisher out there, or if there's a producer or a TV network or something, or the president of Netflix happens to pick up my book and says, "Hey, this is pretty cool," okay, good. But that conversation has not happened yet.
Yeah, I think that Amazon has ruined a lot of that. I feel like with self-publishing, because I feel like it's just flooded the market. And I kind of also am one of the people that miss the old bookstore. I miss going to a bookstore and hanging out at
the bookstore smell with the pages and the coffee and.
Well, there are numerous independent bookstores, and massive shout out to some of the independent bookstores in Washington D.C. We've got a ton of them. We have like Kramer's Books, we have Solid State Books, we have People's Books in Tacoma Park, Maryland. Shout out to those guys, because those are like people that believe in a book in your hand. The pages are turning. You get that cozy feeling. So I 100% agree with you. I love a bookstore. I love going into those independent bookstores in Washington D.C. Barnes and Noble. They're still out there every once in a while. They're fewer than they used to be.
Yeah,
for sure.
They are for sure.
They're going. What was that big bookstore chain that used to be out there for a while?
Books A Million.
Books A Million and Borders.
Borders Books. Borders Books. Borders Books was my mecca. I would go to Borders Books, and I would just walk around Borders Books, and I would just sit there and get coffee, and you can just enjoy your. I think the one that used to be in DC is now a Nordstrom's. So.
Oh wow.
The way of things.
Yeah.
We had a chain called Media Play here, and they had a comic book store, video game store, a bookstore. I forget. There was like a bunch of different genres all mixed together there, and it was kind of so cool. Well, not genres, I guess different types of atmosphere, and it was so cool. But I don't think they lasted very long.
Yeah, I mean, there's still a few good comic book stores out there. That's a whole nother fantastic world to visit and see some, really awesome comic books. And there's actually a really nice amount of graphic artists still writing novels or writing graphic art books. So that's always wonderful to see, because that's a media that really can't translate very well to Kindle, because that's the artist that drew it. I want to turn my page and see the artwork. It's not just the story; it's the combination of the story and the art and So that's really awesome.
The having something,
having it in your hands and being like, yes, I have this in my hands and it is mine. And I still have my Spider-Man comic book collection, by the way. So
that's awesome.
Me too. I still have a pull list, but unfortunately it's shipped to me FedEx once a month now. There's no good stores in it. Well, I will say there's none close.
They're fewer and far between. It is the wave of the future, and we must ride that wave to whatever shore it will bring us to.
And I think the ones that are in Atlanta aren't like the old mom and pop stores.
Right.
They're like a chain, so
it's probably like Books A Million or small little Barnes and Nobles.
I mean, there was this place in Alexandria, Virginia, where we used to go and catch the bus down to I think it was on Mount Vernon Avenue, actually, now I think about that. And it was like walking into somebody's closet. I mean, as a firefighter now, that place had to be a huge fire hazard. But
probably was.
So many comic books. I mean, they're like stacked all over. When you could ask the guy, I'm looking for this, and they'd have it. And they always had the freshest. Of course, back then, there was not that many coming out as opposed to today's world. So there's so many books coming out. How do you find out? Well, I don't say how do you find out. How do you get on some of these best-selling lists? Is it purely based on sales, or is it you get it out to people that basically promote you? Is it or?
Yeah, that's a great question. If one of your readers can let me know the answer to that question, that'd be awesome.
No, I'm
trying to figure that out myself.
I'm still working on that one, so
keep us updated.
Yeah. Like New York Times bestseller, that's just how many books you sell. How many books get sold through the different media. It's when you get published through one of the big organizations, one of the big 5 publishers or 4 publishers or however many there are right now, they put their marketing machine in place and get the word out. So really, it's like, for an independent author like myself, I did go a small press, so I didn't do self-publishing, but there's places like, thankfully you guys bring me on so I can at least get my name out there, get the book out there, say, hey, this is a really cool book, and I proudly say I only have 71 reviews on Amazon, but hey, you know what? The majority of them are love it. The majority are 5 stars and 4 stars. So, give it a read. That's all we can do. But you're right. There's, with the self-publishing world, I think there's the metric that I saw was 1,000 new books come out self-publishing every single week.
Every week?
Every single week.
Gosh.
And that is really hard to even wrap your mind around. I mean,
it really is.
1,000 books a week? I mean, are you kidding me? You have to figure out a way to claw yourself above that to get to the top, 100 even. And then still, once you get to the top 100, there's still 100 books there. That's the top 10% per week. So it's very difficult to get on any kind of bestseller list. It is a hustle. It is a chore. It is a grind.
I would say so. Sorry.
I was just saying, I think that would take away some of the fun of it personally, because you enjoy the craft of writing, you enjoy telling your story, but then you got to go out and pimp yourself and hustle and bustle. It to me seems like it would take away from the other side of it.
I actually talked to a writer, friend of mine. Yeah, now in today's world versus 20 years, 30 years, 40 years ago. 40 years ago, Isaac Asimov. Robert Heinlein and all those guys. Maybe that was more like 80 years ago. They would give their book to their agent, and the book might have been a mess. The agent would clean it up, and the agent would send it out. That days are gone. Right now, you've got to wear the hat of writer. You've got to wear the hat of proofreader. You've got to wear the hat of make plot smoother to make sure the plot works. Then you got to wear a hat of marketer. You've got to be able to come on here and do these kind of podcasts. You've got to be able to write a blog. You've got to be able to be on, I was thinking about doing a TikTok, but it's like, who wants to see me on TikTok? Right. So
somebody would.
You got to do all these other things besides writing the book. If you want to get, you're noticed, if you want to climb above that, 100 or that 1,000 books a week number that keeps coming out, you got to fight.
Man, isn't that crazy?
What's scrapping? I mean, I don't know that I have the fight in me. Of course, it's the same in the podcast world. I have to constantly. I go on other shows and I'm talking to somebody every day. If it's funny. I wake up and I start the day off running, thinking about the podcast, and I go to bed at night thinking about it. So it's got to be pretty much the same way. It is
100% the same thing. Your hustle to get yourselves out there, get the podcast known. No difference. It's it's our world.
Yeah,
I'm looking over some of these reviews on Amazon, and I just find it very funny that the people that rated it like less than 5 stars can't really give you a reason why. I rated this 4, but I'm not going to tell you why I took off a star.
Yeah.
There's one person that actually gave it a 3 stars, full disclosure. But she was like, "This is a great book. I can't wait to read the next one."
And it has potential.
3 stars?
I was like, "Why do you give me 3 stars if you can't wait to read the next one?"
Yeah.
A series with great potential. This book was a fun science fiction adventure with awesome world building and an exciting cast. Eugene was a bit difficult to cheer on as a protagonist, but I'm happy with the change in him by the end. That's probably where you missed your 2 stars. There's a lot of potential in this series, and the author left me with a lot of curiosity about where the next book will go. I'd highly recommend this book to fans of science fiction novels like Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Readers who enjoyed Douglas Adams' novel should find similar humor and adventure in Eugene's.
But she rated it 3?
Yeah, she only gave me 3 stars. So
she took off 2 because she felt that Eugene was difficult to cheer on.
That could be it.
Everyone has their opinion. Everyone, It's all good.
I know. I'm just mad for you.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate that.
We'll just be
That
over
little
here being salty
frustration
for you.
Yeah. Well, how do you not like a star named Eugene? Come on.
You know, McGillicuddy.
Right.
You know, McGillicuddy.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's McGillicuddy.
Is
I was
he
trying to think
Scottish or Irish?
Solid name.
What was wasn't there a cartoon character No, it was Magilla Gorilla, I think. What? No, was there?
Yeah,
maybe.
It just makes
Not
me think of
even close.
MacGyver.
Well,
Another great show.
it was. They'll probably bring that back too. I hope they don't bring the $6 Million Man back.
I hope they did bring MacGyver back.
Did they?
Reruns.
No, I thought they actually made a reboot of MacGyver at one point.
Oh, I don't know.
I
Maybe.
well, now I have to check.
If they did. I didn't watch it, and my wife didn't tell me because she was a huge MacGyver fan growing up. So
Yeah, in 2016 they made a reboot of MacGyver. 100%.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it
Wow.
5 seasons, so it lasted for a while.
Jeez.
well, I've been rough.
Crazy.
There's just one line here at the bottom of this one I love. It says, I also wasn't keen on the author's usage of the phrase I couldn't describe ... In my mind, that's exactly an author's job.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's okay. That's okay. Everyone's entitled.
It's people are just funny.
People are funny.
We get the bad reviews too, and I
You're
get
right,
it.
you're right.
It's all good. It's all good.
It is.
Yeah. If you let them hurt your feelings, they're winning. So
I'm just laughing at them.
You do have to have a little bit of thick. You're going to get criticized. You know,
Oh, yeah.
if you put anything out there, someone eventually is going to say you're garbage, you're terrible.
Yes, you're
good."
right.
But you could be following the writing Bible down to the last syllable, and you'd still be.
Yep. So
Yeah.
all you can do is be your most authentic self. Put together, your words or your podcast or yourself, and put it out there in the world. And that's all. People take it or like it, or take it or leave it.
Yeah.
Very, very true.
Absolutely. Well, when you were writing your book, I've talked to some authors that will take basically and make like an encyclopedia where they write down a bio for each one, so that they go for each character in their book, so that they have somebody to go back to. And then I've talked to other authors who are like off the cuff comedians. It just like flows. We even had one lady that dreamed a book, got up, spoke it into a voice recorder, and then went back and put a 600-page book together from one dream. So, yeah, that one was a little weird. So, but what's your style on that?
So I'm a little all over the place. I will say that I have had one dream that I did want to turn into a book once. So I feel that story. There is this one wild dream I had. I was like, man, that was so crazy. I'm going to turn that into a book one day. Haven't really done it yet. So I think the kind of term is a pantser plotter. I'm both a pantser and kind of a plotter. So I do both. So what that means is like a pantser is just a seat of the pants. I'm just going to type out. I'm going to see where the story goes, and I'm just going to keep going and keep going and keep going. Wherever it goes is wherever it takes me. But I do that with short stories. But with novels, I don't want to get 30,000 words into it and be like, oh my God, I can't do this. I just had a dragon appear out of nowhere and like burn the car to death. That doesn't make any sense. So I do I do this sort of pantser plotter mesh together. I do have a book Bible that kind of tells me like all the different characters and all the different aliens and all the different races and all the different places. You kind of have to do that when you get to a novel level. If you're writing, especially if you're writing a new world kind of a novel, a fantasy or science fiction where there's new aliens or there's new geography or there's new political entities, you have to have that kind of book Bible. New cities,
countries.
exactly. Some people even do their own maps, right? They like a fantasy world. You're going to draw your own map, so you can have an idea of where all the different countries are. Yeah. So I definitely have a book Bible. I like to write out the outline for the book. Just signposts in the wall, chapter 1, he goes to the bar, chapter 2, he goes here, chapter 3, he goes there, to give me a signpost. And then once I hit my signpost, then I try to pants it and just do that for the chapter and say, okay, what's going to happen here in this chapter? Oh, that's fun. That's cool. That's great. But then you have to edit it like 4 or 5 times over after you've written it. Then you may throw half of it away and put it back together again.
I do something very similar, and then I'll like go week and can't write. And then I'll sit there and I'll scribble it all down. But like all my notes end up having to be on individual pieces of paper that somehow mysteriously get lost every time. So,
I'd say there's probably, I'm just going to throw a number out there, 1 million writers in the world, and probably way more than that, like 100 million writers in the world, 1 billion writers in the world. There's 1 billion different ways to write a book, right? Every writer has their own individual way to do it, and every way to do it is okay. The end result is get a book together. How you get there, I mean, do what you have to do to get it to work.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Cheyenne's going to be my author out of us. So
there you go.
I'm going to be a DJ when I get old and push buttons, and she'll be
I am very
Tina's already old, so we don't know what should happen to her. So
I'm going to cut
I'm
you.
I'm very much the type of person that'll wake up and be like, that was a great dream. I've got to write all that down right now because it's going to be perfect for a story.
Yeah, no, I mean, you'd be surprised how many writers do the exact same thing. Their imagination just takes off and they're like, oh my God, that was so amazing.
Well, my fiance is a comic book artist, so a lot of the times I'll get these ideas that I'm like, I would love to write a novel on that, but there's no way that I'm going to be able to get into as much detail as I want. And there's so much stuff that's like, no, this has got to be put on paper because you just can't put it into words.
Oh, 100%. I mean, it's to be too big, right? The world you create out of a dream it gets to be so big, especially if you get into like politics of the world, the aliens of the world, if there are any, the magic system of the world. Like it's so big. We can't grasp this world, right? All the different,
a whole new one,
right? Let alone a whole new one, right? I can barely go shopping and make it happen. Okay, I have to have a list in my hand, or I'll mess it up.
Yep.
I'm guilty of the Amazon. Oh, I need this. Oh, just close the cart. It'll come tomorrow with it anyhow.
Right.
I'm not organized enough to do something like that. Well, out of all of the characters in your book, how many characters are in your book? Rough guess.
Well, there's a few characters. There's, obviously Eugene. He has a secretary named Alice Pemberton, who's not his secretary at all. She's actually she's a super genius. So she is a scientific genius. She has an artificial intelligence partner named Eddie, who was spontaneously created inside of an office chair. So he's used to calculating ergonomic positions, and now he has to be, figure out how to be sentient. There's another artificial intelligence called Pepper who spontaneously came into sentience as in a parking meter. So she's much more likely to want to charge someone for parking than she is to figure out how to be sentient. So there's a whole host of characters. There's also one of the alien races. There's these aliens called the Rants, R-A-N-Z. They look like 10-foot tall walking dinosaurs. And they are ambassadors to the Galactic Congress. So there's all kinds of aliens in all different shapes and sizes.
So that explains the Velociraptor on the cover.
That is right. That is actually the character named Ka, who is the ambassador to Earth, and he's a dinosaur.
It got 3 stars for me off the bat just for the Velociraptor.
There you go.
So fun.
Right? Dinosaurs. I should get 3 stars for dinosaur.
Yep. Agreed.
So, aside for Eugene, which is your favorite out of all your characters?
I have to say Eugene. He's the fish out of the water classic story of, I have no idea what I'm doing, but I'm going to pretend as long as I can, and hopefully nobody gets hurt. And but at his heart, he wants to do the best he can to make sure all of his people around him are safe and secure, and and gets the job done. So I have to say Eugene is probably by far one of my favorite character in the book.
Such a good premise. Love it.
And in your second book, is Eugene in different worlds, or is he in the same world, or does he get?
So it's the same world. So in the second book, it's called Alice Pemberton's Bureau of Scientific Inquiry.
Oh.
Alice Pemberton, the super genius who's not at all a secretary, takes the center stage and has to solve a brand new case on her own with and so it's about her adventures now solving this case and also still trying to keep Eugene out from hurting himself. So hopefully that'll be out this year.
I love it.
Have you already got written, or are you just finishing it up?
Oh no, that's with the publisher. So that is it's in hopefully final stages. They're going through all they have a million things they do, which I'm not really sure all the different publishing steps. They have to the cover and all that kind of stuff. So did someone
He'll be right back.
Oh.
He just hit a wrong button, I'm sure.
Hit a wrong. That's okay. So yeah, the sequel will be coming out hopefully this year.
That's awesome.
It's very cool.
Oh, go ahead, Shay.
I was gonna say, does AI Pepper also?
Okay. I have no idea what is going on. All right, so disappeared.
Okay, I gotta ask now. So does AI Pepper try to sell us her goop?
Her what?
Her goop.
Her goop? What is goop?
You guys never heard of that?
I've heard of goop.
Oh wait, is that Gwyneth Paltrow?
Yeah.
Oh,
her company?
No, there's no goop.
Dang it.
There's no goop.
Sorry, I was distracted trying to figure out. We all disappeared for a minute where we went. So we didn't travel or something there.
Glenn, I'm worried. We haven't heard from Wendell this evening.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we should send out a signal because we have George. We have several regulars. Well, something must be wrong because Brenda didn't even know what night it was. So,
that could just be Brenda.
That's true. Yeah. So we have several regulars, and so yeah, we have to check on Wendell. I'm not sure. He's usually in here by now, asking if you've ever seen a Bigfoot. So if you don't answer him the first 5 times, he gets more persistent.
Yeah,
that's fair. I have not seen a Bigfoot. But then again, I don't go places where they are. I'm pretty sure there's no Bigfoot walking around DC.
You never know.
We have coyotes. There actually have been a coyote sighting every once in a while, and there's definitely foxes. But to my knowledge, there are no big feet in DC. But as I was saying on the earlier, we have this awesome park called Rock Creek Park in Washington DC. So I'm a DC resident. I've been here my whole life. I love the city. Rock Creek Park. It is a very big park. Never can tell. It's actually bigger than Central Park in New York City. So who knows? Maybe there's something in there. You never can tell.
They just live amongst the shrubbery.
There's a lot of shrubbery.
When I was growing up in Virginia, there was the Mount Vernon monster, which was supposedly a Bigfoot. So, and we saw something out in the woods that to this day I've still not been able to explain. So it could have just been
in Bowie, Maryland, there was the Goat Man. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
Yeah, and then was it Herndon has the Bunny Man? I think.
Where?
It's Herndon, Virginia. It's just outside. Yeah, I think it's Herndon. They have the Bunny Man.
Beware, he will fertilize the lawn.
Well, I'm sorry. I'm totally sidetracked. I'm looking at all my technical screens, and that shouldn't have happened. So I apologize. But one of the things about doing a paranormal show is sometimes things just go a little crazy. So
it's Xfinity trying to get revenge.
Maybe.
Are there any paranormal ghosts, ghouls, or anything like that in your book? Bigfoot, maybe?
There are no. Well, there is an abominable snowman at one point. In the part of the book. There are ghosts in the book. There absolutely are.
Okay.
Very cool.
I like it.
I do too. So before we let you get out of here, we always ask our guests if you do have a paranormal story to share with us, and then of course we also want to know where we can find your stuff and what you got coming up next. Obviously your book, but if you have any other projects.
Sure. Yeah. So I actually have 2 paranormal stories. So this is 2 for Tuesday, even though it's Wednesday. It is Wednesday, right?
So, for all intents and purposes, it's Tuesday now.
There we go. So the first one, actually, when I was a kid, I was like, both of these are when I was a child. I was like 8 years old or 9 years old or something like. Maybe he was like even 6 years old. Back in these old houses in New Carrollton, Lanham, Maryland, where my father had a house, there was these metal poles in the basements that held the house up. They're like the support beams, and they're these like about that big or so. And I remember I'll never forget it. I was on the pole and I was spinning myself in a circle, and my brother was sitting there and his friends were sitting there, and I do not doubt even to this day that I saw somebody walk across the door, like in the hallway, and I was like, I still remember distinctly. It was like some dude walked across. He had a beard, and I was freaked out. I like,
oh my goodness!
I stopped going in a circle, and I was like, went to my brother, and I just like stood by him the rest of the night. He's like, "What are you doing?" Like, I didn't say anything. I was just like looking at the door, and I was like, I didn't say it, but there was someone that walked across the door threshold, and I will never say that what didn't happen. I don't know what that was.
Wow.
Not today,
creepy.
That blew me away. I mean, it was just like someone had just like walked across the door. You know, when you're in a hallway and somebody like those horror movies, somebody walks across, guaranteed what would happen. And that would freak me out. And I will never forget that. And I was like 6 or 7 years old.
Wow.
The second story I have, it's even weirder. So, and I don't remember this. So when I was like 4, you left again.
There he went again.
Should we wait until he comes back, I guess?
Yeah, wait till he comes back.
Right.
Okay, I am not sure what is going on. This shouldn't be happening.
Are you pressing any buttons?
Okay.
No, I'm not even touching anything.
Oh.
So this shouldn't be happening. All right, so go ahead with the second story. I'm sorry. We got the
story. It's even weirder. So when I was around 4 years old, my grandpa died. I remember when we were in Ocean City on vacation, and I remember everybody being sad. That's all I really remember from it. Fast forward 30 years later, or 20 years later, I'm 27, 28 years old. My grandma was like, you know what? I'll never forget this. The day after your grandfather died, when we were back, you came up to us when you were like a little boy, and you were like, I don't. My grandmother, I believe her 110%. She's my grandmother. She's not gonna lie. She's like, you said, don't worry, Grandma. I talked to Grandpa last night, and he said everything's gonna be okay.
Yep.
I don't remember that. She guarantees I said that. Freaked me out, and I was just like, what? I didn't say that. He's like, oh, I remember it clear as day. You came up to us, and you were like, I talked to Grandpa last night, and he said everything's gonna be just fine.
He probably came to you.
That was weird. That was a weird one because I don't remember it, and I was just like, but I don't doubt her in a second. Her mind was as sharp as it ever was. So that was my two stories. The second one was like, man, that was weird.
Yeah.
How old were you?
When it happened?
Yeah.
Oh, I was like 4.
Okay.
5.
Well, children are pure. I mean,
But you listen.
I'm sorry. I'm distracted by looking
man.
at all the screens trying to figure this out. You're looking very old, but there will be a troubleshooting ticket put in tonight. So yeah. Atlanta has finally gotten me into the gigabyte per, I don't know, what is it, a minute, a second, whatever it is. And I'm up at the highest speed, and should be no excuse for this. So, I don't know. It's just 2024. So, I mean, we can put a space shuttle into orbit with a calculator, but we can't get a podcast off the air.
He just changed the internet. If you didn't know.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I had Xfinity, curses to them forever, and now I've got AT&T, and they came out here, and there was a guy who shined a light in my face and said, "Look, this is the fastest you'll ever have." And I'm like, "It's a light."
Oh, you mean fiber optic cable?
Yeah, fiber optic. It's all Greek to me. I don't know what it is. I'm that old man that goes into Radio Shack now and lets the kid handle things for me.
There you go.
Yeah, I take my Battery of the Month Club. You will probably be the only one that gets that reference, the Battery of the Month Club card, and get my battery.
I only do because my coworker worked for Radio Shack for 15 years, and she often talks about Battery of the Month Club.
Very cool.
Yeah, that was my first job out of high school. So yeah, People will fight you over those batteries.
That's funny.
So, George, where can people find you? And aside from your book, do you have any other projects coming out or any upcoming appearances?
No, unfortunately, no upcoming appearances. You can find me at georgeallenmiller.com. That has links to my Facebook, to my Reddit, which, I have one follower in my Reddit, my subreddit with, so, stop by anytime.
I will find it right now. I am Queen Reddit.
Thank you so much. So it'd be nice to have two. So that'd be great. So georgeallenmiller.com, links to all my Reddit, my Twitters, my socials. I may start a TikTok one of these days, but it's like, I don't know, who wants to watch me? But you can find the book, Eugene J. McGillicuddy's Alien Detective Agency, on Amazon, and the sequel should be coming out later this year.
Okay.
Nice.
All right. Well, George, I have appreciated you coming on here tonight. And when the next book comes out, will you come tell us all about it?
I absolutely will. I can't wait to come back again. Thank you so much for having me. This has been fun. I would love to come back. And, if you all want to join Reddit and we can have chats about the book, or,
I'm on Reddit.
Big Feet in Rock Creek Park, let's talk about it.
Heck yeah.
Okay.
All right.
I'm still learning Reddit, believe it or not, and I haven't learned TikTok either. So you're not alone there. So
it was really good to meet you, George.
It was great to meet all of you.
All right. Thank you, George. I'm going to let you go. I do appreciate your time tonight, and I will drop you a note soon, and I'll probably try and get a copy of the book from you to sign for me. So
sounds good.
I'd appreciate that.
Thank you. Have a good night.
All right.
All right. Yeah. All right. Bye-bye. Let's see if I can remember what button to push now. Goodness gracious. Okay. So yeah, I'm like really annoyed at I've not dropped internet provider. So.
And it sounded really good this whole time. But I don't mean to jump, but I'm going to have to jump on y'all tonight.
But we went away. You have to jump on me?
I'm going to have to jump off for tonight.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I was like, what are you talking about? Okay. All right. So, yeah, that's fine. Well, I mean, Dina's always here. I mean, unless you're planning on leaving me too, Dina.
No, I'll be here.
She had to think about that there for a minute, didn't she?
That was a long pause.
Wow. Are you okay, Dina?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Okay. All right. Well, wasn't sure. All right. Well, Cheyenne, I'm sure we'll chat tomorrow.
Oh, yes. I've got to we've got a kitten ready for space tomorrow.
Ooh. All right. How old is she?
She 7 or 8 months now.
Okay.
She doesn't look like she's that old. She's a little booger, but she's the last one that we've got to technically take care of. So when she goes into heat, she is a nutso cat.
Oh boy.
Hold me, love
Is that
me.
her screaming? Sounded like a woman.
I heard that.
Did you hear it?
Yeah.
Where was that at?
I don't know. Did you see my face? Because I was like,
did you see mine? I was like, how'd that come from?
Was it at your house?
I don't know where it was. It wasn't
no idea.
here.
I just heard it over this. It didn't sound like it came from anywhere around the house.
It didn't sound like it came from here.
It was George.
Okay. Well, I didn't hear it all. I didn't hear it at all. Well, you might have heard me scream when the internet went out or whatever.
No, it was a woman screaming.
If it was you need to go to the doctor.
Well, there's always that possibility. No, I
came
never.
through my headset.
Yeah.
Well, could have come through this. I will know when I listen back. So, because I will tell you, I've been noticing here lately that I'm doing a lot more editing. There are things that come through the microphone I don't always catch.
It was loud. It was like it sounded far off, but it was loud.
Yeah.
I never heard it.
It was
really.
It was very clear.
Yeah, very clear.
Like a shriek of some sort.
Crazy.
No, it was. Well, if it was the tiny terrorist, I would have heard it. So.
No, it's clearly a woman.
No.
Well, I was looking at George when it happened, and he wasn't acting like anything.
Yeah, he didn't act like he'd heard it at all. Me and Cheyenne both our faces were like, what? Where the hell did that come from?
Blink twice if you need help.
Wow. Okay. No. I will go back and listen for sure now. Because no, I didn't hear it. But before you came in, Dina, they came in and had I guess it was a YouTube, maybe a TikTok, I don't know. It was bats. They're shrieking or chirping or whatever it is they do. Mm-hmm. And Beth couldn't hear it. And Wyatt was like, "Oh, bat, bat, bat," Yeah. I could hear it, but it sounded like crickets off at a distance to me, but I could hear it. Beth couldn't hear it at all. So Cheyenne
could hear it clear as day from.
There's something about how the younger people can hear certain pitches that older people can't hear.
That's true. And well, I've been around jets and fire engines too.
Certain decibels of wheels or.
Well, I don't know. I was that kid coming home from school with their headphones in and the music blasted up as high as I could have it. So
my daughter too, but she's the one that told me that when she was in school. She learned it, but she was like, "Can you hear this? Can you hear that?" She'd like go around and play different tones for me. "Can you hear this?" I'd be like, "No, I can hear it."
They used to be at the Kyle because he's colorblind. And they would bring up those colorblind charts, with the little number or symbol or whatever, and they would all come up behind the Kyle and go, "Can you see this?" And that used to make it so mad.
She'd be like, "I can't believe we can't hear that."
But no, I do.
Jeez, I forgot my hearing aid.
No, it's just I don't know why. It's just the older you get, you don't hear certain high pitched.
Yeah.
Sure, it's probably got to do with our deterioration as we get older.
In your ear or whatever. Cochlea.
Yeah. Well, I've noticed, and I don't know if it's because I wear these so much now, but I've started getting ear infections again like I was a kid.
Oh, really?
I didn't have them forever, since I was a child. And now I've had like 2 last winter, and I'm like, what is going on here?
Oh, that is interesting. Do your ears get hot and sweaty in those?
Not really, no. I mean, these are a little bit different than the other ones. The other ones had like that cloth around them. These are more, it's not vinyl, but it's something like that. And it like cups around the ear, so it's not sitting exactly on the ear. But the other ones were just like cloth and just like took a rubber band and went snap around my head.
Do you clean your CPAP regularly?
Yeah. I spray it down every night. Yeah.
The inside of it, everything, and your hoses and all that shit. That stuff.
Yeah. There's a spray. It's a natural company that makes it, and it's just a big squeeze bottle, and I just soak it all down, shake it, and hang it over the shower the bar for the shower door. So I do that every night. I'm not so good about the tank, but
that could be it.
I need to get better about the tank but I just the thought of putting a chemical in that bothers me. So I mean the hose and stuff, because I know this is natural, but that stuff wouldn't really work in that kind of closed environment. It would never dry, whereas the other one can either drip dry or air dry. Closed in that little tank, it wouldn't, and that just kind of no.
If you rinse it out and just let it air dry, just keep any algae or.
I forgot one time and left like that much tap water in it. And I filled it up the next. I knew immediately. When I put it on, I was like, "Oh no!"
Oh.
Yeah.
All right, you guys.
All right. Well, you get out of here. Go take care of Kitty and see if you can find Wendell while you're at it. So
I'll go bug Bobby.
That's where it is. Him and Bobby are together.
Maybe.
That's where he was at Hibachi the other day.
Yeah.
You know what? You're right. He's cheating on us.
Dang it, Bobby.
Dang it,
We'll
Bobby.
have to put a hit out on him. Well, I sent the link to our second guest, and I'm going to send it again just in case for some reason it changed. No, it didn't, but I'm going to send it again just in case. But
all right. Well, you guys have a good night, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.
All right.
Too.
We'll see you soon.
Have a good night. Bye.
Bye.
And, you know, Dina, I did notice there was an error at the bottom of my screen that my internet did go out.
Oh, it did?
Yeah.
Oh, that's
So,
weird.
yeah, that is very weird. So, but this is my first time having fiber. So they said it was 100% perfect. I mean,
That's weird.
they check it with this thing that looks like a lightsaber. I mean, it's like a miniature little lightsaber. He plugs the cable in and it glows across this little lightsaber-y looking thing and it gives him a number.
Are you wireless or?
No, I'm tapped right into the fiber. My computer is. But yeah, so well, I guess it's from the back of the router or modem to the computer, but yeah, it's tapped right in. But, yeah, it was weird because I'm used to the old screens being, you know, with the coaxial cable giving you a reference, but it had like a little light. It looked like a lightsaber. Oh, here we go. Here we get Tom in here.
Hey.
I was there. I don't know what happened. I went on and came back.
Oh.
I was watching George.
Well,
what was such a great conversation you guys were having with George. I wish I had been part of that.
Oh, well, darn it.
That was really fun. That was really great.
If I'd seen you, I would have added Jen. I don't know if you heard me talking, but I've just got fiber internet like yesterday, and so I'm like the new kid on this, you know, in the corner with the toy, but when it blinked earlier on me, I'm like, I don't know what happened.
You just vanished. First you vanished, and then everybody vanished, and then y'all came back, and it was like,
where'd they go?
Where'd they go? And why wasn't I invited?
Yeah, exactly.
Because didn't see Tom.
Didn't go back.
I'm trying not to be offended because Cheyenne left. It's like, well,
please. No, she had to take care of a kitty cat.
I know, poor cat. That doesn't know what it's in for, right?
No.
Not a clue. Poor cat.
Oh no.
It thinks it just missed its little treats for tonight. It doesn't realize the real thing coming up in the morning.
It did. Poor cat. Anyway.
So Tom, where are you located in this world? And
I'm located near Los Angeles.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Cool.
So that's where I am.
You're definitely much further than our first guest. He was in Washington, D.C. So yeah. So
I don't know the park he was talking about in Washington, D.C.
I don't either.
That sounded really cool.
It did.
You know, I grew up there, and it's on the Maryland. So if you're kind of looking at D.C., it's on the 11 o'clock, 3 o'clock. Is that right? 11 o'clock, 3 o'clock side where Maryland meets it. And I think more of the park is actually in Maryland than it is D.C.
Over there. Okay.
But yeah, it's a huge park. But I grew up on the Virginia side, so I didn't get to go over there. We had our own little parks on that side with Fort Hunt and Mount Vernon and all kinds of different areas. So, but yeah. So Tom, you've written a book. Now you've written a Southern mystery style
book. Yeah, I have called Jolly Roger.
Jolly Roger.
Right.
So tell us a little bit about your book, how you got to the premise of writing the book.
It's such a long story.
Tell it.
It all started. It started with my father. It did actually. My dad was born in Lake Charles, Louisiana, in 1909. Right, so a long time ago. My dad was born there, and I grew up hearing stories about Lake Charles and Jean Lafitte and his treasure. And that was one of the, my dad loved to tell stories, and it was hard to tell sometimes whether they were true stories or they weren't true stories. And I'm pretty sure that the story about the 10-legged jibberjacker was not true, but I don't know that for sure. But the stuff about Jean Lafitte really turned out to be fact, and so that was always present in my mind. And when I was in high school, my cousin and I used to make movies, Super 8 movies. And I decided there that I wanted to be a writer, but I wanted to be a screenwriter. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to write screenplays. And so I went to film school. And when I got out of film school, I started writing, and I've had stuff optioned, and I've been commissioned to write stuff, but I've never, ever had anything done. I've never had anything produced. But I got sidetracked from writing myself when I went to work for a motion picture company, and I started in the mailroom there, and I wound up being head of motion picture development. Right, so I was working with writers and developing their screenplays. So I became really good at structuring screenplays and doing all that stuff. And I never, ever thought about writing a novel. That was not something that I ever thought about doing, because whenever I think of a story, I always think of it in terms of a screenplay. How are you going to structure it with a screenplay? And I've been looking at Amazon, not Amazon, I'm sorry. I look at Amazon all the time.
Me too.
When you look at your heritage, your family, right? And so I've been looking at that a lot, and I learned some really interesting things about the family. And there's this whole branch of the family, the Chrétiens. It's my great grandmother was born a Chrétien. And what I discovered about the Chrétiens was, well, they have this big plantation, actually the Chrétien Point plantation, which the interior was used and Gone with the Wind, or it was patterned. Terra was patterned after this plantation. And I never even knew that was part of the family. But what I discovered was they had a real link to Jean Lafitte. So Lake Charles has this link to Jean Lafitte, and my family they're right outside of Baton Rouge, they also had this link to Jean Lafitte. So this story started coming together to me about if Jean Lafitte had this treasure, and the treasure, by the way, is not your ordinary pirate treasure. The treasure of Jean Lafitte is supposed to be Napoleon's crown jewels. That Napoleon knew his time was getting slim in France. He was going to have to get out. And he planned on leaving France, fleeing France, and going to New Orleans. In fact, in New Orleans, there's Napoleon House, which is supposedly the place that was bought for Napoleon. The story goes that Jean Lafitte actually got the crown jewels from Napoleon, and his job was to take them to New Orleans and keep them safe. But on the trip back, of course, him being a pirate, he was being chased by both the British and the Spanish. So he sneaks up the Calcasieu River out of the Gulf of Mexico and into the bayous, and that's what he used to do. And he buried the treasure someplace. And so the story my dad always told was that he buried it on Contraband Bayou, which is called Contraband Bayou because that's where Jean Lafitte used to hide. So this story just began to percolate in my head about, there was this family, Lake Charles is named after Charlie Sallier. They were good friends with Jean Lafitte. So this story about Jean Lafitte leaving clues to the treasure with both the Sallier family and the Chrétien family. So So I had to find a way to bring those two together. So there's this modern story, a murder, where Roger Chrétien is murdered. And he was supposed to be married to Margot Salier. And so Roger's brothers come into town to bury their brother, and they get involved in not only solving the murder of their brother, but also in looking for the treasure. And so that's how the story came about. But I couldn't think of how to do it as a screenplay, because you have all this great stuff about Jean Lafitte on one hand, which is like, 200 years ago.
Yeah.
You have the present day story, and I didn't want to do flashbacks. I didn't want to do any of that stuff. And so it just happened that it worked best for me to write it this way. So that's what I did.
That sounds exciting and very interesting.
It was so much fun. I wrote the first 3 chapters really easily, and then I stopped writing, and I didn't write anything more on it for 10 years.
What?
Well,
that's a writer's break or pause there.
It was like I got to this point, and I went, I'm not sure. I had this outline. I had this outline of the story. I knew where it was going to go, but I went, I really have to flesh it in a little bit more. Because when you write a novel and you realize you have to be writing at least 50,000 words, like that's daunting. That's like I don't know whether I have 50,000 words that I can write. Of course, when it got to the end, the first draft was over 100,000 words. So
wow.
I shouldn't have worried about it that much.
Yeah, you weren't short of words.
I wasn't short of material either. But I really had to sit down and, also life was going on, right? I was principal at a school, and all this other stuff was going on, and so this was not a high priority to me. But once I retired, then I went, you know what? I solved the problems I had to solve, and then I went ahead. Then it was real easy to write the rest of the book for me. Well, I shouldn't say easy, but it went quickly after that.
Yeah. That's a lot of procrastination.
It was.
Sounds like
it was terrible. Well, to be really honest, there was one issue that occurred to me that I just went, I don't know how to deal with this. And when you're doing a story that part of it takes place in the early 1800s in the South, and you're talking about the family plantation, you realize that at some point you're going to have to address slavery. You're going to have to do this, right? And the characters in the story are going to have to address this, right? True. They're going to have to come to grips that at some point in their family's heritage, their family owned slaves, right? Yeah. And I just went, first of all, I'm an old white guy, and whether I should be writing that part, I don't know. And how to do it without it completely overpowering the book, I really didn't know. But eventually I just said, you know what? They're going to have a conversation, and I knew where it was going to happen, and I just went, when I get there, I'll do it. And the funny thing is that it did not happen the way I planned it to happen. I got to a point in the book, and these 2 other characters, one of the daughter and her boyfriend, are the ones that have the conversation, it's really interesting to me. I don't know if you've ever had this experience, if you've ever done writing, but it's always interesting to me how your characters can take control and decide what they're going to do. And it seems like you have no control over them at this point. It's like, this is what they're going to do, and they just do it. And you're just kind of sitting there, and you're typing it, kind of watching them almost do this. So it's really fascinating. It was fun.
It is how the characters develop their own personalities and their own wants and needs. Okay. That's cool.
So yeah, I'm really happy. Actually, I'm really, really happy with the way that part turned out, because I think it was really cool.
That's great.
Yeah, I would not have a clue how that is, because I'm not much of a writer. I try, but I don't think it's just in me, or maybe I've just got eternal writer's block, but I'm better at running my mouth. And so
Well, that's the first step. It's like,
yeah.
It's like, I have to say this because this is about the conversation we had with George when we're talking about reviews. Truly, this is like, I have on Amazon, I have 8 reviews. They're all 5-star reviews, and people say amazing things that I boggle my mind, because they talk like I'm a real author, and it's
you're like, I act like I'm a real writer.
Yeah, really. And you were talking earlier with George about imposter syndrome. You mentioned that, and I just had that conversation with somebody yesterday about coming on here. I said I have to go on this show and I have to pretend like I'm a real writer.
It's okay. I pretend like I'm a real podcaster. So
okay.
You get like 2 fans out of this. So one of them's me, one of them's Dina. So.
Yep.
So anyway.
Yeah. Well, the only thing my old man ever taught me was ABC: audition, go out there, pretend, I use a bull word in there, and C, close, get the heck out of there as quick as you can. So audition, BS, and close. That's pretty much it.
That's all you got to do.
So.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
So
well, go ahead, dude.
You and George should get together if you write screenplays. And
oh, you know what? Yeah, I know. I was listening to that, and I went, I wish I had the answer for him about, I was really part of the business like 30 years ago, and so all the people that I know are dead now.
Oh, of course, that's how it always goes.
You see, you could have lied and told you had a Hollywood Walk of Star there. So.
I could have. I could have.
You could have.
I could.
Yeah.
Right. Well, it is true. When you do retire, I left Washington D.C. in '92 from the fire department there, and all the people that I worked with have all since they're gone.
Right.
And so kids there now. That's so right. It is a weird feeling.
It is a weird feeling. I talk to people that I work with, and they're not dead. But they're retired. Know, and it's like we commiserate with each other. Because it's like. It's like I don't know what's going on.
I have no clue.
Not a clue. So it's hard.
You feel like kind of a has been, It's like everything's behind you.
Yes, I do. I keep trying to figure out what tomorrow's going to bring. It's challenged. What am I having for breakfast? I don't know.
Oh well,
it's fun.
What drew me to your book was I've always been a sucker for like the old pirates' tales, the old pirate stories, and that thing. And so that's what brought me to your book. Of course, obviously the name got me reeled in and went from there. But it just floors me. You wrote 3 chapters and in 10 years you didn't do anything with it.
And I was really happy with the first 3 chapters. I have to say, I really was. And it wasn't like I can't finish this. I just didn't know how to finish it.
Yeah.
And because I would always come back to it. I would always think about it, and I would always go, there were a lot of problems. There were a lot of questions I had. It was like, well, do I have enough material to write a whole book? And then, okay, I figured I probably had enough material. And then there was a whole slavery thing, which really puzzled me for quite a while. But also I started with the structure that I started with the book is kind of an unusual structure, and I wasn't sure I could sustain it for a whole book, honestly. And what I finally realized was this. I said, I'm certain I can continue this structure for the first section of the book. I should explain that a little bit. because when you write, when you structure screenplays, most of the time we think in terms of 3 acts, right? So you have the first act where you build the story, and then you tell the bulk of the story, and then the last act is it's like a play, right?
Yeah.
And that's what you think in. And so that's the way I structured the book. I structured in 3 parts. And so I knew that I could keep this same structure for the first part. And then I went, you know what? Nobody says that I have to continue this exact same structure for the next part.
That's true.
Because I'm writing the book, I'm making the rules.
Right.
It's like I can do whatever I want.
Yeah.
So I went, so just let me finish. Because that's the way I find I work, is that I have to get to a tilting point. And once I get to that tilting point, I just finish it. Mm-hmm. And after 3 chapters, I wasn't there, and I knew I had to get to that point. And that was the end of the first part of it.
Yeah.
And then I could feel confident that I had the ability to write a novel.
Yeah.
And that's what happened. So yeah.
That makes sense. I mean, well, and plus we all, as we grow older, we all mature and life happens, and so it in a story like this, to me, it sounded like with the genealogy and things you were pulling from it, that played a big part of it as well.
It did. Absolutely. And what I learned is that I'm in the midst of writing a second book. I had no intention of writing a sequel to the first book, none whatsoever, except I found another story in my ancestry, a brother of one of the characters, that's a real life brother of one of the characters that's actually in the book, that he has a real interesting story to tell. So now I'm using that as a
jumping off place.
Yeah, jumping off point.
Yeah.
It's like, because in my book, what I do is I tell dual stories, right? I have the present day story, but I also have at the beginning of every chapter, I have a blurb that is part of the story, like the Jean Lafitte story. I tell that's separate from the story I'm telling, which is really interesting, but because by the time the reader gets finished with the book, the reader actually has more information about what's going on than the people in the book, the characters in the book. So there are things that happened and they don't know why, but the reader knows why because they've seen it happen. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I like that.
Yeah, I love to read to begin with. So novels, I read a lot of novels and screenplays. I hate flashbacks, really. And I hate when characters at the end of a book, you always have it where they sit in a room and somebody explains what happened. Somebody explains the backstory. And
why did that happen?
I didn't want to do that.
Right.
So I did this. I really like the way it works.
I like
really
that.
Cool. Yeah.
Because I could see, like, it's like you're watching a movie and you see these characters and you kind of know what's going on, and you're like, you can see yourself like going, no, don't do that, because you know what's going to happen.
Right. Right. That's right.
I love it.
Right.
Yeah.
So I just found this to be an incredibly interesting experience writing this book, because it was like it was wonderful. And whether it's good or not, that's something else that you kind of talked about with George, is that when you write, you have to only write for yourself, right? At the beginning, because that's you can't second guess it. You can't think I'm writing for this audience or that audience. You have to write to please yourself. And so I'm pleased with it, and it's like, and for the first time I have a product, I have a book that I can hold in my hand and say, I did this.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
So aside from the 10-year break, Once you got it back together, how long did it take you to get it complete and out to somebody?
That's right. Well, okay. So I decided, what year are we in now? We're in 2024, 2023.
Not a good judge of this question.
2022. In the summer of 2022, I said, I'm going to finish this book.
Oh, that's not long.
And so I finished it at that point, I was halfway through the first part, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I probably had, I don't know, I don't even know how to begin it. But anyway, I finished the book. I finished my first complete draft of the book in June of 2023.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
That's not long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that didn't sound long.
No. Anyway, yeah, must have been that. And then I was trying to then peddle the book, and I went through the process that George was talking about sending out query letters and all this stuff. And it was like, none of that worked. And so, doing research about it, you've got self-publishing and you've got this stuff, and I don't know how to go about doing that. And I started reading about hybrid publishers, right? Where it's kind of like self-publishing, but it's not. It doesn't, you still have to pay a fee, but it's really the fee for them making it into a real book, doing the proofreading and doing kind of editing and doing all of that process. You pay them to do that, and then they help with the marketing.
Oh, that's good.
Well, it was. I mean, it's a great idea.
Oh, well, yeah.
Their proofreading wasn't that good, and my proofreading wasn't that good. So I keep finding errors in the book. Stupid that appear and disappear and things like that. But
yeah,
and they didn't help all that much with marketing. But yeah, that was the route I tried to take. So I was not successful in going the traditional route. But for the next book, maybe I can.
And he was saying that usually once you kind of get your foot in the door, it's kind of easier the next time. So
I'm thinking that. But at this point, I'm still back to what I'm doing. I'm doing it for myself.
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing it because this is really a cool story that I'm telling now, and I'm really enjoying it. One of the things that's really interesting to me is that in the first book, I was dealing with characters in crisis, right? Because this brother had died, and so all the characters come together over this event that happened, this death that happened, and in this book, it's different because it doesn't begin with that kind of an event at the beginning. So now we see the characters in the beginning of this book in their everyday life, sort of, and that's a much different way to write, and then weaving in this other mystery part of the story and getting that started. So it doesn't start with a big bang, but that evolves over a period of time. So it's just a different way of approaching the story, and I'm really enjoying telling the story that way.
That's good.
It sounds like a pace. I was just going to say, it sounds like a pace is what I was.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah, you're right. It is. And I honestly, at this point, I'm not sure that it's working totally yet. So once I get finished with the first section, I'm going to have to take a look at it and maybe have a couple people read it to see whether or not I'm doing what I think I'm doing.
Yeah. And
whether it works well or not. So.
Well, that was one thing he talked about with having local
Absolutely.
writing stuff. That's critical. I'd never thought of, really.
That's really critical because otherwise you're just talking to yourself.
Right.
I do that all the time.
Yeah. I know, really, and see where it's gotten you. really.
Exactly. Alone in a room talking into a microphone.
Talking to yourself. No. Talking to us.
Dina looks at me and goes,
You are alone.
She agrees with me. So are you originally from the South before you
No. My like I said, my dad was born there. I lived here. And so I was born here, but we used to take trips to Lake Charles. And so Lake Charles was always kind of this magic place for me that we would go to, and it was so cool. You know, we would go fishing and crabbing, and we'd meet these really cool relatives, and we'd sit out in the back porch swing, and they'd all have coffee and tell stories, and it was really this magic place. And so, you know, I'm going to have a real interesting experience, because in 2 weeks I'm going to Lake Charles, and I'm going to do several events around the book in Lake Charles, and it's going to be fun because it'll be fun. Because I have a lot of relatives there. I have a lot of cousins that are there, and my son and I were there this last summer.
I was going to ask if you traveled there for any of the writing of the book.
No, I didn't. Not for any of the writing of the book. I've done a lot of research going to New Orleans and to Lake Charles for the second book. But the first book was really just Googling stuff. And you know, finding out information about the city, because it's set there, and I wanted it to be authentic setting there, right? So I wanted to talk about things that were actually present, you know. So it was fun.
I'm almost a southerner, and to me, from what parts of the book I read, you nailed the Southern history, the Southern feeling, grit to it. So.
Well, I really hope so. I mean, I made certain decisions, like most of the characters in the book have a French heritage, because that's kind of the way it is in that portion of Louisiana, right? In the southern part, the Cajun part, and there's a lot of there's so much of that there. And so when it comes time to give character names, I went back to ancestry.com. I went back into my family tree, and I pulled names. You know, I would take a surname from here and place it with this first name from this other person and put it here. And that was really kind of cool, you know, because it's like so many of the characters are meaningful to me, right? Yeah. I mean, and you find out some really interesting things. Like I'm actually related. Jean Lafitte is actually an uncle of mine.
Oh wow!
His sister is my fifth great grandmother on my mother's side. That's of the family.
Wow,
it's just cool. It's just like, okay,
it
is. Did you do a lot of the what is it? Ancestry.com? Is that one of the sites? That's what my wife
used. And not that everything on ancestry.com is true. You know, you don't know. I mean, you don't know it, but it's like, okay, I'll go with that.
Yeah.
You know, so because after all, I'm writing fiction. I'm not writing fact. So
yeah.
That's true. That's true. But you do put a historical little.
I do, and that's but some of it is made up.
Move them together pretty well.
Yeah.
You know, and so it's like some of the Jean Lafitte stuff is true. Some of this, and some of it's not, right? But
that's what.
But it was fun. It
was you know.
It was really neat to to kind of create that world. And it was good.
And in a pirate's life, we really never know what's true, what's false.
And so it's like, I was funny. I was writing it, and I was in the second section, and I sent it to somebody to read, and but and she liked really the first section a lot, and she was liking the second section, and then she said, she looked up Jean Lafitte, and it was like, well, he wasn't a very nice man.
He was a pirate.
Well, he's a pirate, for crying out loud.
Oh my goodness.
I realized I really had to go in and kind of, I inserted a part in there where was the daughter of one of the brothers, Jenny, where she comes to that realization, that
Yeah.
we're talking about Jean Lafitte, but he was kind of a despicable person.
Yeah,
actually.
he was a cad.
As being kind of a heroic, and I don't know how much people really think about Jean Lafitte, but historically, the whole Battle of New Orleans, War of 1812, where he's kind of had a heroic figure in that situation. We kind of think about him historically as that, as opposed to a pirate. It's like
He's kind of a Rhett Butler type.
Well, you know what, but part of the problem is that I kind of wrote him that way, and so yeah, he's kind of a figment of my imagination, really.
There you go.
It's like,
well, as you said, at the end of the day, you have to be happy with it. So
I do. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Like I said, what little bit I've gotten into it, you nailed the grittiness, and I mean, mosquito bites weren't there, but
yeah.
No, that's true. And food, I'm telling you. I mean, I did a lot about food. I did, because it's one of the great memories of going to Lake Charles was eating.
Yes.
And they talk about food all the time. It's
where
like
we spend most of our time.
It's like any conversation you have with anybody, within 10 minutes, it's going to go to food.
Yeah.
It's just going to. And it's like, well, it's a way of life.
The kitchen table was like,
it is. It absolutely. So much of my, not so much, I guess, but I write a lot in the kitchen, right? With the characters in the kitchen, because that's where the kitchen and the back porch on the swing, those are my greatest memories of being a kid and being there, because that's where the adults hung out, and
that's true.
And for sweet tea.
Yep.
You have the sweet.
That's it.
We sat on the front porch because we'd wave at everybody that everybody drove by, throw their hand up, and then you go throw their hand up at you.
That's right.
You either had a swing or a glider.
That's right.
Oh God, I forgot
swing on the back porch. My grandfather, when I was little, my grandfather worked for the parish, the county, right? They call them parishes in Louisiana.
Yeah.
And he was the deputy tax collector, is what he was. And so we used to go and visit him at the city hall, because that's where his office was, but that's not what I'm talking about. Every morning when he would get up, he would be the first one up, and he would go in and he would make a pot of coffee, French drip, where you pour the water over the grounds, and he would come. My brother and I were sharing a sofa bed that was in the living room, and he would come and he would wake us up, and the three of us would go out on the back porch, sit on the swing, and he would make cafe au lait for us.
Yum, yeah.
And that was such a great memory, and it was that kind of a feel that I really wanted to get in the book. I really wanted to that feel of what the South kind of meant to me.
Yeah.
And I think I was successful for me anyway. I like that part of it a lot.
It sounds good. Sounds great. I haven't read it yet. Just
well, I hope you do. And if you do,
but
write a review, please. It's
I would love to. I will.
I just got a new review today. I hadn't had one for like 6 months, and one appeared on Amazon today. And it was like, okay, cool.
Yeah, my grandfather grew up in Mississippi in Bogachita. I don't know if you know where that is, but his sister, my great aunt, married a man who is Cajun, and I just love to go down there and hear and spend time with them and hear him talk. I just love the way he spoke. And
so fun. It is.
Oh, I love to hear him talk.
Yeah, right.
He was
they talk about the South, north of the I-10 and south of the I-10.
Yeah.
And it really is true that there is a real difference, particularly in Louisiana. I don't know that much about Mississippi, but in Louisiana, there's such a difference because south of the I-10 is really Cajun country, right?
Yeah.
And north of the I-10 is just kind of typical South. There's not that much different between Georgia and Alabama and
true.
But south of the I-10 is where you really get a lot of the texture, the feeling, the real neat stuff, I think.
Yeah. My great grandfather, he lived in Baton Rouge with his second wife, and I don't know. I remember visiting them there, but I'm sure we did. I just don't remember it.
And we used to come down to Knoxville from. I'm sure you heard me say I grew up in the Northern Virginia, D.C. area, and Knoxville was the South for me.
Yeah.
So, and then we go to the lake and see the mountains and stuff like that. So, and I think that's kind of like what memory it brought back to me was that of childhood and that of remembering the things of the South. And like Dina said,
Knoxville is the South too.
Yeah, well, it was even much more as a youngster to me because my high school spoke 13 different languages. So
absolutely, that's true. Yeah,
that's crazy.
That's right.
It was nice, and even though we had not far away from DC, we had mountains and things. The Front Royal, the Luray Mountains, that stuff. Tennessee was always like a getaway, and so that's what the book brought me to.
Right.
Right. But the food is also kind of good too. So
heck yeah, biscuits and gravy.
It is. That's like
I went on a job interview down in it was Louisiana. Where was it? It was way down there. It was south of I-10, and I remember they had crawfish on everything. I had crawfish.
Oh man,
crawfish.
Absolutely. A place this last summer. When my son and I were in New Orleans, a cousin of mine lives in Baton Rouge. They came. She and her husband came and met us in New Orleans and spent the night. And they took us to a Mexican restaurant.
Mexican.
Yes, absolutely. And I had crawfish enchiladas.
Oh wow!
And it was absolutely fabulous.
I bet it was.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm having when I go to Lake Charles in 3 weeks, I'm having a book signing at a place called Tio Juanita's Fish Camp, and it's
Tio Juanita's. That's cool.
Tio Juanita's Fish Camp, and it's a Mexican Cajun fusion restaurant.
Nice.
It's really supposed to be a real great restaurant, a real cool place.
Wow, I bet it would be good.
As a matter of fact, I have a story. Can I tell a story? I don't know how much time we have. I decided I was going to go to Lake Charles this spring because every year, the first 2 weeks in May, they have this pirate festival called Contraband Days. And I thought, well, you know what? I should really go. I should really take advantage of this. Kind of duh. I guess. And so I went, okay, yeah, I'm going to do that, So I made reservations at this place, and I made, plane, and they're not having it this year.
Oh no.
Yeah,
Oh no.
what? No, they didn't have it during COVID, of course, and coming back from COVID, it was really been hard for them to kind of get traction, and so they decided not to have it. So I'm sitting here and I'm going, well, okay, I have this non-refundable hotel and non-refundable flight, so I'm going to Lake Charles, which is okay because I get to meet family and I get to kind of hang out and eat food and all that stuff. And I didn't know what to do until I realized part of what I'd done. I have a Facebook page, that's Jolly Roger Facebook page, and one of the things that I did was the page joined pirate groups. There's all these pirate groups in the country, right?
Yeah.
And so I joined a lot of groups, and so I sent out. I posted in there that I was going to go to this thing, and they're not having it this year. If anybody has any ideas, let me know. And I got a message back from somebody, this woman who runs this pirate group right outside of Lake Charles. Sulphur is where she lives, and she said she used to run the festival in the past. Before COVID, she ran it. And so she said, if you want, I can see what I can do to set stuff up. So she's the one who organized this book signing at Tijuanita. So I'm going to have pirates there, and that's going to be this cool thing.
How fun.
It really is. It's amazing.
That's all.
Please pick. I want to see that. That's going to be cool.
Yeah, take some pictures and post them on your
absolutely. It's really going to be cool. Really, and then I'm also gonna talk at I'm gonna have a thing at the local library there, the downtown Lake Charles. I'm gonna be there, and I don't know what because again I have to pretend like I'm a real author. And
yeah, you could do that.
You've done a fine job, Tom.
Okay, I'll do an hour and a half on the art of the novel. That's kind of
just talk like you have here. You did good. You did very well.
By the way, I have to say this.
Sure.
I know you don't think, Dina, that you have issues with Stephen King. I think Stephen King is an amazing writer, and it's his book that you guys talked about on writing. It's an absolutely fabulous book. And what's so interesting to me about this book is that you get this insight into Stephen King about. Because it's so easy to dismiss a writer like Stephen King as not being an auther, right? It's like
no. I love his writing. I just don't like. I
know that's what you said. I understand that, but it's like he understands the craft of writing so well. It really is wonderful. It's wonderful. I really love reading his stuff. I don't know if you've ever read It.
Oh yes.
It. To me is one of his best books. The way he writes kids is just amazing to me. He really is really fabulous.
Yeah, he is really he is fabulous, a fabulous writer, like I said. And it's just, I think the reason I don't care for him much is he's just cranky and mean on Twitter. He is.
Well, he's an old guy now.
He is. He is just so cranky.
And also, he's been through stuff. You read what he talks about this. I think he talks about this in On Writing, when he's talking about the time that he spent when he was, alcohol and drugs and
I didn't realize all that.
Saying that he doesn't even remember writing Cujo.
Really? Oh man,
Cujo I think is really a cold.
Cujo is
to write Cujo and not remember that you wrote it. It's amazing
that's pretty bad. Yeah, well, I'll give him a little break then, I guess. He had a hard time.
Well, he had that accident too, where he was hit by the car, and man, he was paralyzed. Or it was weird.
Yeah,
he came back from that, so that's why he's cranky. I think.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're right. He's a hateful man, though.
One of the things I think about is I'm more into thinking about like athletes and stuff. And sometimes I wish, get on the field, do your thing, shut up. I don't care. That's kind of the way I think about it. Sometimes it's great to see them play, but then when they come off of there and they open their mouth and you realize.
Then you go, right. Absolutely.
Yeah, you wouldn't think somebody would just like say, he's just so, that author, he's just so mean. Or he just shut up and write.
Yeah. That's right. Let's see. Let's see if I can get you to cry.
No.
If he wants to come on and debate you, Dina, I would love that. So I might actually get 3 viewers. Stephen King. So.
Hell no. Just no.
Maybe 4 viewers tops. So
no.
Well, one of the things that you heard me ask George, we wouldn't be the paranormal guys and gals if we didn't ask, do you have any type of paranormal stories?
Well, it's hard. I don't really, except for this. And he talked about his grandfather. Mm-hmm. I have 2 stories that I can tell that really have to do with my grandmother and grandfather, although they're not exactly paranormal. When I used to spend the night, you go, they lived in Los Angeles, and there would be occasionally where I would go and stay with them for a while, right? And I would go into this, they had a spare bedroom, and that's where I would sleep. Well, it was like 10 years after that happened, I was talking to my uncle, and he said, well, that's the haunted room.
Oh, no.
Because he said, that he had experiences in that room where he woke up in the middle of the night and saw this figure standing at the foot of the bed. And, he'd had the covers ripped from him. And I went, well, that's where Grandma put me. I spent the night in that room. It kind of put my relationship with Grandma on a totally different realm at that point. But the other story is this. It's sadder, right? Because it was when my grandfather died. And at the time they were living out in the desert. And so we went, my mother and father and I and uncle drove to my grandmother, and we picked her up and we brought her back home with us because this is where the funeral was going to be. And so we get back to the house, and it's in the middle of the night, and all of a sudden there's this wailing woo, woo, woo sound coming, and I like wake up to this. So it's like, what the heck is going on here? And it was my grandmother who was in the room next door to me, and she was having this nightmare.
Oh no!
She was doing this wailing, and it was like, okay, well, that's it. Those are my 2.
You just thought something was going to get you.
I did. I just thought, well, this is it. Well, Grandpa's coming to get me.
Remembered you from the haunted room.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I'm gonna say, are you sure you were a good child?
Exactly. Well, let's see now.
Wow.
That's funny. So when does your book tour of Louisiana?
I'm going to be there. I'm going on the 8th of May, and so I'm doing Tijuanitas on the 9th, and I'm doing the library on the 10th, the afternoon of the 10th, and then I've got the rest of the weekend that I don't have anything yet, but I could just hang out and eat with cousins. So
you should do that.
I might do that.
Should. Well, it's a beautiful area too, so
yeah,
it is.
Just don't go get any dips with the alligators down there.
No, I don't think so.
Do they have the problems there like they do in Florida with the snakes, the big, huge snakes?
You know what? I'm sure out in the bayou they do, but I haven't spent that much time in there, but I've seen no snakes.
Yeah.
Let's hope we keep it that way. Now, the only reason I thought of that is I saw a video where a guy went out into the Florida Everglades and he was hunting these snakes. And I was like, I didn't realize they got that big.
You know, and these are called crazy people. But my dad would talk about water moccasins out in the, you know, when he would be out fishing in the bayou and the lakes and the. So yeah,
well,
I mean,
hopefully
there are definitely critters that you have to be careful of.
Oh yeah.
Might be Bigfoot down there. So never know.
Never know.
I think down there it might be swamp ape.
It might be swamp thing.
Swamp thing. Yeah. I never got around to ask you. Are you a comic book aficionado?
I really am not, but my son is, and he's kind of gotten me involved in comic books and stuff. So.
You sure he's not dragging you down a bad road here?
No, I don't think so. You know, he's
where grandma left you. So.
Yeah,
she hung me out to dry. He's really into superheroes, and honestly, we're talking about a young man who is now a freshman in college, and he still likes to dress up like Spider-Man with his friends or Batman, and you know, he's majoring in film, and he loves to make he loves to make he's really into Legos, loves Legos. He makes stop action movies with Lego figures, and
that's a talent now.
That's kind of cool.
It is.
That's a talent.
He's a very talented young man. Yeah, I have to say that he really is.
My daughter did that when she was like 10 or 11.
Yeah, really.
Somebody telling, oh Lord. So, but what does he create?
Legos,
excuse me.
What does he create with the Legos to make the stop action? I've never heard of this. That's kind of cool.
It is. I mean, he has figures, so he makes. He must have 100 Lego figures and sets, right? He's got this whole town of Legolopolis, you know, it's like this, it's huge, where he has all different kinds of things, and he squeezes in, you know, there's parts of Hogwarts that are in there and parts of, you know, it's amazing what he does, and he takes the figures then and creates these stories using the small Lego figures, stop action, and it's you know, he has sets, and it's amazing. He started doing this. He's had his own Lego channel from the time like he was 10 years old, maybe earlier than that, actually.
That's cool.
I'd like to see that. I really would.
Let's see. It's
shut up, Glenn. He's trying to think.
I'm trying to think of what his YouTube channel is. It's Plushco Boss.
What is it?
Plushco Boss.
Plushco Boss.
No, see, that's the plushies. That's when he does
plushies.
Yeah.
Stop action with plushies.
Yes, plushies.
That's what my daughter did too. That's
where he started.
Yeah, that's what she did.
Yeah.
Actually, with their plushies.
Yeah, it's really pretty cool.
It is. Of course,
I'll check this out.
She didn't stay in the arts, but I mean, she still does art. But...
He enrolled at the at Santa Cruz, the University of California in Santa Cruz, as a astrophysics major.
Oh, wow!
And
it's a change.
He's decided to change into a film.
Yeah.
Okay. He's still really interested in astrophysics, but you know, it's like
that's a tough subject. So
it is a tough subject.
Now, when you were in Hollywood, did you any major motion pictures you were involved in, or?
I don't. Well, you may not know of any of them. I don't know if you know The Howling. The Howling. I did The Howling.
I remember The Howling.
I did Escape from New York. It's a picture that I did.
Okay.
I did a Chuck Norris picture called An Eye for an Eye. Really nice little picture.
Yeah.
Night the Lights Went Out in Georgia.
What is it?
Excuse me?
What was the last one?
The Night the Lights Went Out in Georgia.
Cool.
Seen that.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah.
It was fun. I enjoyed that a lot.
You're quite
Until I didn't. And then.
Yeah.
Well, it's like that with any job.
Well, I mean, it is. I had my first real boss in Hollywood said to me one time, he said, this is a great profession. And as long as you're having fun, it's a great place to work. He said, when you stop having fun, you need to get out. And that's what happened. I stopped having fun and I got out.
Yeah.
It's good. It's good advice for anything. I mean, it really is.
Absolutely, it is.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, Tom, we have kept you longer because of the computer glitch and I don't know, the Matrix sucked up part of my internet feed or something.
Absolutely.
Actually, while we were doing this, I heard thunder and it just occurred to me. Apparently, the power blinked at the same time.
Oh, must be it.
Storm. So yeah. So I can't exactly blame AT&T if they can't help them. So.
No, well, you can. I would. They deserve.
I still blame Xfinity. So.
Right.
Well, Tom, when you get the second book, I want to have you back.
Okay. I'd love to come back.
Then you can say, hey, now you're an accomplished podcast.
Now I am accomplished podcast, and I probably by that time I'll have 9 reviews. And
or maybe 10.
So
yes, I will.
She's the reader, so I'm more the comic book guy, but I do try and read some, not as much as I should. But I definitely want to have you back. I'm definitely about the food, so I'm going to be checking out your page.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. As soon as you said that, talking about putting the two together, I remembered eating at a place down. I think it was a little Florida town, and they made alligator tacos.
Alligator tacos.
When I first I thought, was this horrible?
I don't like
the biggest problem I have with alligator is that it's green. That's the biggest I have with that. It's like if it wasn't green, I don't think I think it would be okay. And frog legs, I feel the same way. I don't.
Yeah.
Legs can't do. Yeah.
Alligator is like green chicken.
It is, and it tastes like slightly fishy, but it's
green
like,
chicken that tastes like fish. It's disgusting.
The frog legs, the alligator, I can't. I love. Oh man, there's another place down in Florida. You got me going about food. Go down into Florida and they do. It's a special wings they make there, just like their brand of buffalo wings, and gator bites, and they fry them together and they serve them with your sauce, and you get a basket of wings and gator nuggets, and
gator nuggets.
It's in the South. You can fry anything.
Edible. Well, for the first time, I had turtle soup.
Did you like it?
It was fabulous.
Really? I've never had
it. I was at Commander's Palace in New Orleans, their turtle soup. It was the most amazing thing almost that I've ever eaten. I was shocked at how good it was. That something called turtle soup could be so good.
Oh, did it taste fishy at all?
No.
Really?
No, not at all. It had a wonderful, wonderful taste. Just incredible. It was, so I say, you should definitely field trip New Orleans Commander's Palace turtle soup.
I have to do that sometime.
And tell them Tom sent you.
I will. I'll say Tom sent me.
You're going to be world famous by then. So
that's right.
All right, Tom. Have a good evening. Thank you.
I will. You too.
Thank you for
coming on.
So
thank you for having me.
We are glad to have you. I had a great time. I really did, and I can't wait to finish the book. So, Tom, tell your son he needs to come on and do our show too. How about that?
Okay, I will.
Yeah.
All right. Cool.
Yes, I will.
Have a good night.
Tell me.
Okay. One guy didn't know what the heck it was. Talk to you soon, Tom.
See ya.
Bye. That was great. I was freaked out about the storm, or not the storm, the internet, but it was a storm.
Yeah, I guess.
But yeah, I didn't know it was supposed to storm, but I've been kind of.
I didn't even hear any lightning here.
You're a couple miles away from me.
Yeah, so. No kid.
Yeah. But I'm glad to know that it wasn't something else, because I was freaking out. I was like, and I noticed that there was still some popping occasionally, but not
a little bit, but not near as much.
No. And we're 211 over, or 211. So we've went well past where it would normally start. So
yeah.
And tomorrow I get some other part that my son ordered that makes me go 1,000 times faster. So I go from 1G to 2G.
That's good.
So it's supposed to even be getting better. In fact, it's probably going to be so well. My son told me, you'll probably have to upgrade your computer soon. And I'm like, I just bought the thing.
Yeah.
Is what it is. Dina, you got anything coming up in the near future?
Misfits this Saturday.
That's right. And we're talking about phobias.
Are we?
Yeah, I think that's what she wrote up.
Me?
No, Cheyenne. Sure. We were talking about phobias, about what your biggest phobia is.
We already had that show.
Well, yeah, but I think she's found some like weird phobias. So
yeah, I haven't seen anything on it. Where was it at in the chat?
Yeah, it was in the chat. Let's see. So next week we have a shaman, the self-proclaimed crazy Jamon, the shaman. And then after that, we have, finally, Joseph Sewell. I wondered what it was coming up on him, because I've been reading his book some. Joseph is going to be the second guest, a decorated combat veteran. So it's going to be an interesting combination, a shaman and a combat veteran. So,
nice.
And then Friday, this Friday, day after tomorrow. I don't even know what day of the week it is. We have the Grinning Guardian Gang. We have an author that is a retired Chicago PD investigator, now turned crime novelist. So I'm looking forward to that as well. So
good.
Tune in for that. You get his name is Mike Hammond. Is that correct? Let me make sure I'm telling you the right day. You might have read some of his book, because I know you like that type of stuff. I think it's Mike Hammond. Yes, Mike Hammond. So. Yeah, so it'll be a good show, and then we're back around to after that the Paranormal Guys next week, and then Misfits.
Sports show Monday.
You
have the sports show Monday.
Oh yeah, thank you for reminding me. Jeff would be messaging me, asking me why I didn't mention it. Yes, we have the Lip Men on the UFO. The second episode coming up next Monday night, so which is kind of interesting, because I know about football, but I didn't know about the UFL. I mean, I knew about them, but I didn't know they have some different rules. So I actually guess some that are kind of like the big boys ought to adopt, that make the game much more interesting. So it's kind of like a cross between I don't want to say minor league football and the NCAA, but yeah. It's I'm still an SEC guy, So it's hard to get them from me.
Yeah, it's difficult to move away from it, I think.
Yeah, well, once you've watched the college sports for so long, so it's even jaded me on NFL. Really, what I did used to have more favorite teams in the NFL. Now, because of watching college sports more, I have favorite players more so. So unless they go to the Cowboys, then I just hate them. So they're dead to me. Unless they go play for the Cowboys, then they're dead to me. So
oh gosh, you're crazy.
Not a Dallas Cowboys fan. Ladies and gentlemen, we will see you again next week. Same time, same place.
Good night.